Hello again and welcome back to our New York studio for another episode of HobbyKing's FPV 123, Guide to the Basics and More of FPV. Now, sorry guys about the delay in this series. We've been battling a lot of gnarly weather. We're going to get out there and try to bring you as many of these as we can, starting with this right now. Some of you guys have mentioned in the comments the last couple of videos about ground stations. Some questions about ground stations and also maybe why you would use a ground station instead of goggles or some of the advantages there. I've collected some of the stuff I have here in the studio, including my own ground station, so I can show you guys maybe some of the reasons why you would use some of this stuff or make some of these choices. Let's start right away with this little guy in front of me. Now this monitor here is a dual diversity receiver built into a monitor, 5.8 system that receives all 32 channels of the 5.8 spectrum. What does that mean? That means with the little switches on the back of this guy right here, you can choose any number of different channels. This way, this is compatible with both the BOSCAM and the Fat Shark system, which are the typical 5.8 systems that are out there, covering the entire frequency range. So this is a really good choice for somebody if you want just kind of a second monitor or a spare system, or maybe you're going to a field to fly with some buddies and you don't know what their gear is. This thing receives everybody. Another cool thing about this is this bracket on the back that lets you mount this thing on your transmitter. If you're the type of FPV pilot who wants to fly the very basic system, you can actually mount this guy up right on a transmitter rack, kind of like that, and have your screen and your transmitter all in one place. I've never flown that way, but I'm sure there are a lot of you out there that are going to tell me it's the best thing ever. I'd love to see it. Doesn't do me a whole lot of good to talk about this stuff and not show it to you, so of course I am going to plug these systems in, show you what the video looks like as we go, and explain a couple of things. I mentioned that this is a diversity monitor. What does that mean? It means there are two separate receivers in this monitor that are constantly searching for the strongest signal. That's a huge advantage when you're flying because it means a lot less cutouts. You can actually see and hear it kind of going RX1, RX2 there as it tries to find a signal. I'm going to turn my radio on and plug in this Quantum Venture we've got here on the table. Now the Venture is an excellent FPV specific model, and this is a great way to show that off. I'm going to be using this when we're done with this video to give you a little flight footage as well. Now,
lens cap.
James caught me. Lens cap.
That's making the video.
That's making the video. James caught me on the lens cap there. We'll pull that off. As you can see, got some video.
There we go.
Wants to switch back and forth between antennas. That's because indoors, 5.8 gigahertz is subject to quite a bit of ghosting. The signals bouncing around in the room and tend to interrupt each other and get in each other's way. And you'll see this thing switching back and forth because it's trying to find the best possible signal in amongst all of that interference. That's not really the case when you go outside, nor is it the case if I shut up and stand still and get away from that thing. It should stabilize out. Yep. Okay. Now if I move around a lot, it's going to keep blinking in and out, but I am going to leave that on because I want to show you something else that's pretty cool about this stuff. If you are flying FPV or you're going out and you're going to do this stuff, it's kind of cool to have a monitor like this or an extra set of goggles around. So if you're going flying with a group of people, you can actually turn this stuff on and check out what your buddies are doing while they're flying. That's always a ton of fun. So where do you go from here? Assuming you don't want to fly with a fairly small monitor on your transmitter or your goggles, maybe you're trying to get into some big screen FPV, or you want your boys to be able to see what you do when you fly, or kind of put on more of a show, you can move into some of the larger stations like I have here. Something like this is incredibly ideal. Let's say you bought that Quantum bundle like our boy Alex did, and you got your goggles and all that stuff, but you're thinking, I want to try out a screen. What are the reasons would you do something like this? You want to get yourself a tripod like this system here. The reason to do that is that your FPV reception is much better if you can get your antenna up high. So we've mounted on the top of a tripod another piece of carbon pole, just tubing you can buy from us at HobbyKing, and we've attached this 32 channel receiver to the top. Now this is still 5.8, this is the receiver from the bundle. Because it's 32 channel, that means it's compatible with both of the systems or the common systems on the market, the BOSCAM and the Fat Shark. So again, a great option there. Along with a screen, this is our really nice FPV monitor that we carry. Comes with this wonderful sort of sunshade so that you don't get a whole lot of glare and other stuff on the screen. That's also an awesome option. I will go ahead and fire this up. You can see that this as well is receiving from the Venture. Ta-da! That's those two. Hello. Very, very simple solution. This is the receiver from the bundle, just mounted on a tripod with any monitor. Sort of a note about those monitors, this is an FPV specific monitor, as is this one here. That means no blue screen. You know, like when you lose a little bit of fuzz on your screen at home and that screen goes blue instead of just displaying the static. Well, that was kind of something TV manufacturers did because nobody likes staring at static. But with FPV, that can be a huge problem because when that blue screen clamps down on the static, sometimes there's quite a delay, even if the signal comes back before it switches back on. That can really, really mess you up. Let me tell you, neither of these monitors will do that, and that's an important feature to look for if you're gonna build your own ground station. Ground stations can get incredibly elaborate. Talking about something like this. This is a station I put together over the last couple of years for my own use for some of my longer range 5.8 gigahertz excursions. That's what this is all about. This is an Immersion RC 5800 Duo receiver. This is a true diversity receiver that allows me to run both a circular polarized omnidirectional antenna as well as a patch antenna. This antenna gives you much longer range as long as you're flying out in front of it where you belong, and this antenna helps out as you get closer. This receiver automatically senses whichever one is stronger and switches. I have been able to go 5 or 6 miles on this system as it is on 5.8, which is not half bad. Other kind of cool things about this is a cool 19-inch 12-volt monitor. Took a lot of research to find this thing through various RC groups and other stuff, but this is not a non-blue screen monitor, but an almost non-blue screen monitor. You have to lose signal for a long time and very aggressively for it to go to blue screen. I've never had an issue with it. For those of you that are wondering, let me double check. It is an M190 MV monitor from Vizio, but you will have a hard time finding one because I believe it's been discontinued for a while. So there is that. Other things that are useful and available still in this pack. This is kind of cool. This is a HobbyKing power strip. This is a 12-volt switchable guy that allows me to plug in the TV, the receiver, and all those other things and run them off of one battery, which I then keep in the pack. This is a little zippy compact 3S. Normally I would run a giant pack, something like a 9 or 10,000 milliamp hour 3-cell. For a ground station like this, you can get away with that, and then you get several hours of runtime out of it. It's very cool. There's other cool stuff in this case. One of the reasons to build a ground station like this is it allows you to keep all of your stuff with you. This is one of our HobbyKing on-screen display units. One of the other comments in one of the earlier videos was about OSD and OSD setups in FPV models. This is here, so I can show you that, guys, very, very soon. Other things that you might want to keep. This little guy is a simple solid state recorder. There is no recording mechanism on most of your FPV stuff, so something a lot of people will keep in a ground station is some kind of recording mechanism for recording the downlink video. It's not HD, of course, it's just knock this thing over one more time. It's not HD, of course, it's regular resolution video, but it's always awesome to have some kind of recording of your flights. Plus, if you do have an OSD with like GPS information and other stuff on it, you'll be capturing that on this screen. Very important if, like me, you've ever lost an aircraft but still had video going, because I did have a plane go down and I was able to find it based on the GPS coordinates on the recorded screen. Very, very handy. So that's kind of cool, right? You plug that in and you can see from your lights here, these two circuits are always on and the rest are switched. Also cool if you want to conserve power with your station, I can use this to do that. I could even plug a charger into this thing in a pinch and use my large LiPo to charge maybe a smaller flight battery, something like that. A receiver will sing to me. That's the way that the Immersion RC receivers here on the ground indicate which channel that they're in. They are 8-channel systems, so each time you push the button, it just beeps at you, counting out the channel. So as you can see, guys, there's no magic here. There's nothing that I'm doing with the ground station that I'm not doing with the goggles. It's the same idea. On the plane, you've still got a camera and a transmitter, and on the ground, you've still got a receiver and a display. In this case, the receiver is here instead of in the goggles, and the display is some kind of screen. Now, another note maybe worth mentioning, most of these units have a second AV out as well. You don't have to fly without goggles. One of the things I like to do is take the ground station to the field, set all of this up so that I have my superior diversity receiver for video, and then go ahead and plug my goggles into that as well so that people can watch what I'm doing on this screen, and my spotter has something to do. Can look up at the plane, look at the screen, kind of enjoy himself. Maybe you're wondering why you would use a ground station and not goggles. Well, here's a big one for me. As far as I understand this right now, if you're flying from a ground station, a screen type situation like this, without your vision obscured by goggles, you can fly FPV without that all-important spotter. If you're flying with your screen out in front of you and all you've got to do to see your aircraft is look up from your screen and spot your plane in the sky, then in theory, you're good to go. Now, somebody please correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. I've spoken to some folks from both the AMA and the FAA about this, and apparently that's the way it works, but I'm not 100% sure. So if somebody's been, confronted about this or you've got a contradictory thing, please do let me know, because I'd like to know exactly what the deal is there. Now, that having all been said, it's a whole lot more fun to fly than to talk about flying. So why don't we go outside? You guys can see how some of this stuff works. Fling this thing around the parking lot a little. I'm gonna fix this wide-angle Mobius camera here right under the nose of my Venture so you've got a matching view of my FPV cam. Remember, FPV in this case is not an HD stream, so in order to make the video more watchable for you guys, I'm gonna put this guy on there. Let's go have some fun. Gonna take you guys outside and show you what this all looks like, but given that I'm about to see wildlings and white walkers coming through the parking lot, I think I'm gonna skip that, and instead I'm gonna fly through the SIG hoops on the ceiling of my studio. So there you have it, guys. Ground stations are an awesome alternative if you don't want to wear the goggles. Maybe you've got a vision problem. Maybe you want to show your buddies what you're doing. Maybe you want to fly without a spotter. There's a bunch of reasons to do it, not least of which being that it's just kind of cool to have a TV coming from your plane. Guys, keep those FPV questions coming. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. I'll see you next time with FPV 123.